Nelson Mandela versus Winnie Mandela, Clash of Ideals in the Apartheid Struggle. Welcome to My Blackness 100, where we dive deep into the untold stories of Black excellence, power, and resilience. Have you ever wondered how two of the most influential figures in South Africa's fight against apartheid, Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela, could share a vision for freedom yet walk such different paths? What happens when the fight for justice and equality sparks not just political battles, but personal ones too? In this powerful episode, we explore the clashing ideologies between Nelson and Winnie Mandela, each fighting for a free South Africa, one through reconciliation, the other through resistance. Their conflicting approaches to dismantling apartheid not only shaped their marriage, but also set the stage for a nation divided by ideals, yet united by a common struggle. How did Mandela manage this tension while guiding South Africa toward a peaceful democratic future? Could his vision for a non-racial society survive the radicalism of those closest to him? And what was the price of peace in a nation desperate for revenge? Stay tuned to find out how Mandela's journey from armed resistance to reconciliation mirrored the soul of South Africa's transition from apartheid to freedom, and the delicate balance he struck between justice and unity. Nelson Mandela's journey toward freedom and equality was shaped by several pivotal phases. Before his imprisonment, Mandela's approach was deeply rooted in peaceful resistance, nonviolence, and unity. Early on, he worked within the legal and peaceful frameworks of the African National Congress, ANC. Mandela was influenced by the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, who had led a peaceful struggle against British colonial rule in India. This period saw Mandela participating in the Defiance campaign, where he joined hands with other freedom fighters to challenge apartheid laws through civil disobedience. These actions were meant to show the power of nonviolent protest. Mandela's involvement in the Congress of the People in 1955 also reflected his commitment to nonviolence. This was when the Freedom Charter was drawn up, setting out the principles for a future democratic South Africa. At the time, Mandela focused on the idea that Black South Africans, along with other marginalized communities, should have equal rights and that a peaceful, nonviolent approach was the best way to reach this goal. It was a time of unity where Mandela believed that the diverse peoples of South Africa could come together to form a democratic society without the use of force. But Mandela's experience with apartheid, and along with the brutal repression by the state, soon led to a shift in his thinking. The Sharpeville massacre in 1960, when police opened fire on unarmed protesters, killing 69 people, was a turning point. This incident forced Mandela to rethink the methods of resistance. Up until this moment, he had believed in peaceful protests, but the events of Sharpeville made it clear that the apartheid government would not respond to peaceful demands. This marked the beginning of Mandela's embrace of armed struggle. In 1961, Mandela co-founded Umkhonto weSizwe, MK, the armed wing of the ANC, and began advocating for sabotage as a means of striking back against the regime. Mandela's philosophy began to evolve. While he still maintained that the ultimate goal was a non-racial society, he now believed that to force the government to the negotiating table, a more direct and, at times, violent resistance was necessary. However, even with MK, Mandela's objective was never to engage in full-scale warfare or to harm civilians, but to disrupt the apartheid regime's infrastructure in a way that would force them to confront the reality of their oppressive system. Mandela's arrest in 1962 and his subsequent trial in 1964 at the Rivonia trial marked another crucial chapter in his journey. Despite the fact that he had embraced a more militant approach, Mandela remained steadfast in his vision. At the trial, he famously delivered a speech declaring his readiness to die for the ideal of a free South Africa. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and sent to Robben Island, where he would spend the next 27 years of his life. During his time in prison, Mandela's views continued to evolve. His initial commitment to armed resistance gradually gave way to a deeper understanding of the importance of reconciliation, negotiation, and peace. In prison, Mandela engaged in deep reflection about the future of South Africa. He began to understand that true freedom for Black South Africans could not be achieved through violence alone. It would require the cooperation of all South Africans, including the white minority. This understanding led him to embrace a policy of national unity over radical resistance. The Mandela-Winnie conflict. While Mandela's approach evolved, the trajectory of his struggle was often in tension with the approach taken by his wife, Winnie Mandela. Their differing philosophies highlighted a deeper ideological divide during the anti-apartheid struggle, but also revealed the contrasting roles they played in the fight for South Africa's liberation. Winnie Mandela's approach was more militant and confrontational. While Mandela embraced negotiation and reconciliation, Winnie was largely focused on direct action and radical resistance, especially when Mandela was in prison. She became a symbol of defiance, calling for a more aggressive stance in confronting the apartheid regime. Her statements often advocated for violent resistance, and she openly rejected the idea of negotiating with the apartheid government, believing that any form of compromise with the regime was unacceptable. Winnie's radicalism was not without justification. She had witnessed firsthand the brutality of apartheid and felt the weight of the oppression more personally than Mandela, who, though also a victim, was removed from the direct violence due to his imprisonment. As a result, she felt that the fight for freedom could not be won through peaceful protests alone. Her more militant approach resonated with the suffering masses in the townships, particularly the youth, who were disillusioned by the slow pace of change. Her leadership in organizing protests, strikes, and direct actions kept the spirit of resistance alive even in the darkest times. The tensions between their approaches were magnified by the growing frustration with the apartheid system. While Mandela, through his years of reflection, saw the importance of negotiating a future where all South Africans could live in peace, Winnie's radical stance was rooted in anger and frustration. Her vision was one of retribution, where the government needed to be overthrown through struggle. She was less interested in unity and more focused on justice through confrontation. As Mandela's path shifted toward reconciliation after his release, the ideological rift between him and Winnie became even more pronounced. Mandela's call for negotiations and peaceful talks with the apartheid government was at odds with Winnie's more radical stance, which increasingly alienated her from the direction the ANC, under Mandela's leadership, was taking. Mandela's management of the conflict. Despite their differences, Mandela and Winnie's conflict was never fully publicized in a way that deeply fractured their relationship. Mandela, always a pragmatist, managed the tension with a remarkable sense of diplomacy and tact. While their political ideologies clashed, Mandela never disrespected or dismissed Winnie's role in the struggle for freedom. He understood that both his and Winnie's actions were driven by a shared desire for a free South Africa, but their methods were different. Mandela's leadership style allowed him to remain above the fray. His approach to Winnie, especially after his release, was one of understanding and respect. He often spoke of her as a partner in the struggle and recognized the sacrifices she made, even though they had different views on how to achieve their common goal. Mandela didn't believe in publicly airing his differences with Winnie, choosing instead to work through them quietly. He knew that a divided nation could not heal, and that focusing on the greater goal of a peaceful, democratic South Africa was more important than personal or ideological conflict. After Mandela's release, he continued to emphasize national unity and reconciliation as central to South Africa's success. While he disagreed with Winnie's radical stance, he understood the importance of acknowledging the pain and suffering that had led to such anger and frustration. His leadership was a model of forgiveness and healing, but he also made it clear that while their methods differed, the ultimate aim of the struggle, freedom for all South Africans, remained unchanged. Mandela's commitment to unity extended to his approach to the ANC. He knew that to achieve the peaceful transition he sought, there had to be a willingness to compromise, not just from the apartheid government, but from within the ANC and among South Africa's people. Mandela understood that radical resistance would not provide the long-term solution South Africa needed. As much as it was important to acknowledge the history of oppression and the pain that came with it, the country needed to focus on building the future rather than continuing to fight the past. Post-independence reconciliation. After South Africa gained its independence in 1994, Mandela's role as president saw the culmination of his vision of reconciliation. His leadership extended beyond the government and the ANC. He became a symbol of healing for all South Africans, even those who had once been his oppressors. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a landmark initiative under his presidency, allowed for a collective healing process where both perpetrators and victims of apartheid could speak the truth in a safe and supported environment. Mandela's ability to forgive and focus on healing the nation became the hallmark of his leadership. His willingness to bring the country together despite its painful past, and his belief that forgiveness was necessary to create a cohesive nation, was integral to the transition to democracy. However, Winnie's more radical approach continued to influence her post-apartheid life. Though she initially played a supportive role in Mandela's presidency, her more militant legacy and her alienation from the ANC leadership meant that her political career never fully aligned with the conciliatory policies Mandela championed. She ran for leadership within the ANC, but her controversial reputation made it difficult for her to secure significant political power. Mandela, in contrast, chose the path of nation-building, and his legacy, while inclusive of Winnie's contributions, was defined by his focus on peace, stability, and progress for all South Africans. While their political trajectories diverged, Mandela's diplomatic management of his differences with Winnie ensured that their shared legacy of fighting apartheid remained intact. Their differing views on how to achieve justice and reconciliation did not fracture the overall mission to end apartheid. Mandela's ability to manage these differences, despite personal strain, was a testament to his understanding of the bigger picture: freedom and unity for all South Africans, regardless of their past struggles or political affiliations. In the end, Nelson Mandela's leadership was defined by his unwavering belief in forgiveness, reconciliation, and nation-building, while Winnie's legacy remains a powerful reminder of the anger, frustration, and radical resistance that were integral to the struggle against apartheid. Together, their contributions to the fight for freedom shaped the new South Africa, but it was Mandela's vision of a peaceful and inclusive future that ultimately led the country into the new era. And there you have it, the untold story of Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela, two giants whose differing paths to freedom illuminated the fierce struggle for justice in South Africa. Despite their contrasting approaches, both played pivotal roles in shaping a nation's destiny. Their journey from radical resistance to peaceful reconciliation teaches us that the fight for freedom is never straightforward, but always worth the sacrifice. At My Blackness 100, we are dedicated to uncovering these powerful stories of Black excellence, resilience, and leadership, stories that continue to inspire us today. If this video resonated with you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you won't miss our next deep dive into the history, struggles, and victories that have shaped Black history across the globe. Join the movement. Let's continue to uplift and celebrate the stories of Black brilliance, because Black excellence deserves to be heard.